You do, James.
Thank you very much. All right. And for the purpose of this interview, we're just trying to understand through your lens and through your journey how service has impacted you, and then to what capacity have you served prior to the military, during the military, and after. So really tied into the concept of service and how it's either changed you or hasn't changed you, and you know, I'll be asking little questions here and there where I feel like I see, a smile on your face. I'm going to look for like, hey, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper and wonder if, it might be tied to your family or tied to a certain event, and ask you the particulars of those moments or specific names and dates. And that's what we'll be talking about. So to start off with, can I get your full name, your MOS, or your branch of service, your job that you had in that branch, and where you were stationed?
Okay, certainly. My full name is Alina Simone Scott, but I go by Simone. I served in the U.S. Army, and my MOS was a 73 Charlie. Initially, it was a 71 Lima, which is finance admin specialist. I ended up as a finance specialist. And you want to know where I served?
Yes.
Okay, I served in several locations. I was in for 8 years. I started in basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and then Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, Fort Bragg, South Korea, Walter Reed, DC, Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland, and I ended up at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. That's where that was my last duty station.
Oh wow! I wish I did finance. I would have stayed home then. I was born in DC, PG County, and so yeah,
nice.
have family that has worked at Walter Reed their whole life, and
nice.
grew up in Silver Spring, Potomac, all those areas, so.
I love that area. We have family there. We still go back to visit Columbia, and then of course we went to DC. We saw the African American Culture Museum. Yeah, I love that area.
Oh, I still have to go to see the museum. I was able to go see. I remember when Obama first became president, I was able to take my great aunt, who had a huge role in the civil rights movement. She wanted to go, and she came in from New York, and I took the subway with her to down to go see the inauguration, and I still had my subway ticket in the box, and so that was huge. But that's amazing. So,
nice.
In terms of service, how did that get you into the military, and was it something where with finance that was already attached to it? What were you doing prior to service?
Prior to service, I was working at a fast food restaurant, and I was going to a community college. I joined shortly after high school, so I did 1 semester, and I was in Detroit. So I wanted to see a little bit of the world. I wanted to serve my country, and let's face it, at 18, I wanted consistent, decent income, and I wanted to know I wasn't going to get laid off. So with all those factors, I joined, and yeah, it was a great decision. It was a great decision.
And so when you were first in, I mean, serving for 8 years, that's a lot of time where you get the first indoctrination of the military, and I know we will always remember that. And,
yes.
And you start to figure out, kind of the values of the military is very, very much in depth, and you really, to a huge extent, you really start to, kind of fasten, hold on to it, and you start to see it affect your every single day life, inside of work and outside of work. So in terms of service, how did you see it kind of mold you, shape you, or shape anybody else around you, where you started to kind of have like an aha moment, like, oh man, like I really feel like I'm making a difference here in the finance department?
So the military in general shaped me by disciplining me, and anyone that's been in the service, if they've stayed in the service and didn't get kicked out, they know they had to be disciplined and learn respect. And I like the camaraderie that was instilled within the military. No man left behind. It shaped me by pushing me to my limits with training, with the physical training, It pushed me to my limits. It taught me endurance. Even now, it took a long time after the service to not stand at ease if I was talking to a superior. I mean, it was just ingrained in me. So it took a minute to kind of loosen up and civilianize, but still keep that level of respect.
Yes. Yeah, I'm still it's funny because I'm still doing those things myself. I've only been out since 2017, and
Okay, yeah.
yeah, and for me, there's just like you, there's certain aspects to it where you really actually do appreciate because it keeps you focused. It keeps you
Yes.
just,
Yes.
and that's
Yeah.
very important for us. And sometimes we don't want to let go of those things because now it's part of our identity, right?
That's right.
And you don't want to apologize for it, but you also don't want to be the outcast. um, but at the same time, it's the thing that separates you, right?
Yeah.
So during those times where you're learning, that you're getting this endurance within those 8 years, and you're gaining this endurance, you're gaining this discipline. Are there any particular moments where you notice where you were separate from your peers and you were really progressing, or where you were helping others progress just as much as you?
The only time when I saw a real separation is after basic training and after AIT. I went back home, and the friends that I'd hung out with during high school, we just weren't in the same headspace. I mean, and I was only gone for 4 months. So that was one of the few times that I saw a separation because I just had different experiences, and things that were important weren't important anymore. So you just look at life differently. You see other cultures. You have to acclimate to other personalities, and other cultures. People, that may not have seen blacks before. You have to. There's just a lot that you have to experience and live through. It gives you a different perspective, a different foundation, almost because you have different things that you're faced with. So all in all, it was good. My peers in the service, I mean, we all kind of went through the same thing, as far as the discipline, and yeah, mainly with civilian friends.
Yeah, yeah. Do you still are you still in finance now that you're out, or yeah, you are?
I've always loved numbers. So currently, I'm a budget analyst, or fiscal and business analyst is the official title. I just completed my MBA in finance, and prior to that, I worked in banking and lending for 14 years. I'm
Wow.
dating myself here if you add up all these numbers. Anyways, for a number of years.
No, that's all right. That's all right. And so, and with your love of numbers, and then when you're transitioning out of the military, you're first newly veteran in the workspace. I can imagine, since when you're working with quantitative information, and you're just stick to the numbers, and you're around like-minded people. Um, did they kind of love the diversity you brought to the department, since it's you're bringing that aspect of just staying on point and staying strict with the numbers? I mean, I would imagine to be someplace that was somewhat rewarding to people who are newly around you. Or did you have a different kind of interaction?
Um, my first job wasn't in numbers. It was an administrative specialist, or an admin assistant. So it was my first job out of the service was a little challenging, only from the standpoint of, I was more serious, more yeah, it was an adjustment. The first job outside of the service to civilianize, it was an adjustment. I remember one incident. I had to relay some information to someone. I had, as an admin assistant receptionist, I had a call about someone's child, and for some reason they shared the information with me instead of just leaving it on the person's voicemail. And so when I relayed it, I was just stating fact. The person's child was okay, but there was, maybe an accident or something. And I guess the way I delivered it, they really, they said I didn't have any emotions with it, but in the service, you know, you just report the facts. I mean,
Yes.
and so they were upset, and my her supervisor pulled me aside, and you know, it was a little bit of an adjustment. But at the end of the day, once I kind of smoothed out being a civilian and acclimated into that, it was better. But yeah, I mean, 8 years of just, you know, strictness and discipline, and you know, it was a little bit of an adjustment, but I do okay. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, it takes a while to kind of rein in the where you need to put in the emotional intelligence, and
Right.
that's something, you
Thank
know.
you.
Yes, that was actually, I can't, don't think me thank my sister actually, because she's the one that pointed it out to me as something that I was lacking. Um, and you know, that's where I had to receive help as well. So now I commend you for on your journey, for going through yours, and that's something that, you know, as veterans, that a lot of people don't see it as that. They see it as, oh, they're trying to be this way, or it's an effort. It's just, no, when you're in a certain atmosphere, this certain world, this world, you know, that's inside of a nation,
Right.
um, then you know, that's what it's like. That is the everyday, and it has nothing to do with like or dislike, like you
Right.
said. It
Right.
has to do with just getting the job done, and that's, you
Right.
know, as long as that's done efficiently and effectively, then, you know, then you've done well. You've done your just job.
Yeah, she went crying, like literally went crying, boohoo crying. It's like, what?
Don't, it's like, I don't understand. You got the information. Did I miss something? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that
so
that
it's
that
all good.
yeah,
The
that can be.
other, I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
No, you're good. No, I was just gonna say, no, that could be hard in terms of that transitional aspect. But in terms of just doing a job efficiently, effectively, it seems like that aspect you've got no problem with, and you know, you're doing well right now. It seems like you're just ready for that management position, and a position where you can just make direct calls and really delegate particular tasks and stay with the numbers and stay with protocol and policy. Do you find yourself in those positions now, where it's just like you feel a lot more comfortable?
Um, I supervise student employees, so I've supervised 9 employees, student employees so far, but I don't just supervise them. I mentor them, I coach them, I discipline them if I have to, I train them. Um, when they graduated, they come back or reach out and they'll say, you know, thank you. And some of them, they'll thank me before they actually graduate as they're leaving, but they appreciate the time and attention and the mentoring that I give them. I give them real life situations, and you know, I just help shape them so they can be better people when they go to their first job. I mean, I tell them to take this job serious. It's not just some fluff job, and I hold them to a standard, because when they transition, I want them to have that in them and not have to learn it, because employers, corporate, they may not tolerate it. There's so many people looking for work. They may, you know, they may get the axe because, you know, other people may not take the time to coach and guide a newer employee. There's just too many people out there looking for work. So I try to help them to be very useful in the workforce. And they all look back and appreciate it or thank me.
For
So,
for being that, staying that professional, and just and really, that's really amazing. I never thought about it in such a unique way. Like, you've not only probably passed the torch on in the military, but you're also making sure that you're passing that experience on as a, you know, a civilian leader as well, and making sure that, hey, like, this is what I specialize in, and I
mhm.
promise you it can be just as rewarding as it was for those soldiers in there. Like, I'm not, you know, you're not calling them soldiers necessarily, but you know, making sure that, you know, like, it benefits you, because you need to make sure that you can hold this job down. And a lot
Right,
of us can take that for granted, you know, because we all want what we feel like we know what we want, but to understand that, you know, it's about what you need, and you need to make sure that you're really reciprocating your employer's, what I'm thinking of here, their sense of urgency, if you,
yes.
and that's something, that's how I felt in the military. As long as I could meet them at their sense of urgency, and understand that, and not put, like you said, not put the emotion into it, but understand that, if it's fast paced or if it's at a certain pace, then I need to learn how to, meet them at that level, and then that way I can be as effective and efficient. And then when I go home, then we can,
Yeah. Yeah.
relax a little bit. But no, that's amazing. So, do you have anything that you've brought with you today that you felt, I guess, really reflects in the service or out of the service, that's really important to you?
Okay, so since this is for Veterans Week, I primarily have military pictures. I have some, yeah, primarily military. Um, so this was when I first joined. I swore in right after I turned 18, like a few days after I turned 18. And then this was in basic training.
Oh, you just lift a little higher?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there we go. And then just a little bit. For some reason, it's not coming up. Just a little bit higher.
Oops.
There we go. Perfect. Wow.
Okay.
There it goes. Wow. That's nostalgic. The one on your right, my left, that one reminds me of when I swore in too, or it was just the flag was also on the right hand side.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Wow. Lovely. You guys are still had the greens back then too.
It was a while ago, yes.
The greens look better. The greens definitely look a lot better.
Yeah. These are friends that I met there, but you know how it is when you're in the service, you move, they move, you're stationed somewhere else, they're stationed somewhere else, and then you just lose touch. So these were good friends during basic training. Um, this was at Fort Jackson. And then my first duty assignment, again, I was an admin specialist. I was in a CID unit, criminal investigation division. I loved it. I loved the office, but I was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. So anyone that's been in the service, were you in the Army?
I was.
Okay, so Fort Leonard Wood, is Fort Lost in the Woods. It truly was. At 18 years old, I did not want to be lost in the woods. So I got a stateside swap 3-4 months later and went to Fort Bragg. But I loved my office. I wish I could have taken them with me. They were a good group. So Fort Bragg, I was in a military police company. So that was pretty interesting. And I don't have any work pictures. And again, I try to keep it military. But on weekends, I did, find time to hang out. It was a group of us. This is just like a friend. We all hung out together, just, hung out. It was, yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful picture. I love that one.
After Fort Bragg, I went to Korea. Korea was great. Wait, excuse me. Sorry about that. Okay. So Korea and Fort Bragg were the best two places that I was stationed at, in my mind. Fort Bragg, there was a lot to do. It was a huge base. I had field duty as a sorry.
There you go. I got while you said I'm going to take a sip too.
Okay. So I was surprised as an admin specialist. I had to go to the field. I had to stay in the pub tents and yeah. So with the military police company at Fort Bragg, that was something that built endurance. Having the cat holes, showering in a still pot, or cleaning yourself with a still pot, and having the MREs, things like that. Develop your character. You don't have conveniences, and you're kind of roughing it.
It's almost like a new form of humility when you've got to live in the sticks or live in certain ways that another culture lives, where it's just that's the norm there. And then there's other areas where they're advanced, where it's just like, oh well, there's some benefits to this part of it too. It's it's wild when you think about, like what would you trade, what would you be willing to trade for when you move to different places? Because I bet there's some certain aspects about Korea. Is there anything
Yes.
that you still miss and that you still wish you had now that you're back stateside?
Yes, Korea, it was clean. It was very clean. Um, what else was it? I lived in downtown of Korea, of Tungdashan. I was close to the second ID. But I lived because I had three other roommates. I had a two-man room with there were four of us, so I had an inexpensive apartment downtown. Yeah, it was too many people in the room. So Korea, this is one of my pictures from Korea. Um, uh, just a colleague. We stayed good friends while we were in the service. I have like road march pictures, 20-mile road marches, which, it was fun. It was fun. I truly enjoyed the rucksacks, and I don't know, it's kind of weird, but it was just challenging. But it
Yeah.
was fun. You were with people. Normally, I was a leader. Normally, I was the platoon sergeant. I had junior ROTC when I was in high school. So when I joined the Army, I was an E2. And so I was normally the more senior person. So I was normally the squad leader or the platoon leader. So I was leading our group on a 20-mile road march. Um,
So it
so
sounds like the physical aspects of it. See the platoon guide. I see you over there. Oh, man, see that? I was so jealous of your patterns back then. The BDUs right there. Ah, they look so cool. I'm jealous. And that's something I find that's very unique. I mean, you're in finance, you're doing 20-mile, road marches these days. I remember when I used to always go to different S shops, and I used to always ask who wanted to go out, that night because we might have been a man down overseas, and they'd be like,
mhm.
"Gibbs, no way we're going out with you crazy people," because it was just they were just like no, and they were always okay with the training, but when it came down to it, I felt the same way that the physical aspects of the training really really nourished me mentally as well and centered
Mhm.
me somewhat to like how people prefer maybe yoga or they prefer just meditation. For me, the ruck marches and being out there in the field really and away from technology a lot of the times really kind of centered me. So when I got back inside, it kind of reset my engines, if you will, and I really like that about the service because I do miss that. It's not to say we can't all walk out our front door and go on a road march, but it's not the
It's
same.
different.
It's really
Yeah,
different. It's really
it is
different.
different. There's no cadences or, you know, um, it's just different. It's just different. Um, I just have a couple of more Korea pictures to show. Um, so we worked hard, but we played hard too.
What is that one on your left there? What's that one in your left hand? That one is awesome. Yeah, that
It
one's
was just a um, Photoshop from the Korean. This was in Korea, excuse me. So yeah, they just did interesting things with the photos.
oh yeah. See, I went to the wrong duty station. I was at Fort Benning pretty much the whole time, but now then I went up to J Bear, Alaska, for my second duty station, and then down to Fort Polk, Louisiana. And it's funny, people had a lot to say about, Alaska. There's a lot of people who wanted to go up there. Me personally, I could live without all that snow and all the darkness.
Yeah.
It was really
Yes.
fun in certain aspects because the mountainous regions were so beautiful. I mean, the way I describe them to people, it was almost like being in Afghanistan, but the whole place was colored in all these different colors. Like God had taken a Crayola box of crayons, the giant
Mm.
pack, and threw them everywhere all over the ground, and that's how many different vibrant colors of flowers there were. And I was like, I've never seen a place like this in my life, and I've been to Colorado and all over.
Where was
So
that?
that was going to be Geronimo DZ or Geronimo Training Ground up in Alaska, Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson. It's about 20 miles north of Anchorage,
Okay.
and and it was just a beautiful place. And I've driven to the North Pole. No, not too many
Oh,
people say
wow.
that. Yeah,
Oh,
so
nice.
that was pretty cool too. So
Very
I
nice.
yeah, so it's just like these rare things that I've done. When I was doing it, of course I was complaining about how cold it was driving, and then someone's like, "Oh man, we drove to the North Pole." I thought to myself, I was like, "Huh, not too many people can claim they've driven there before."
Uh, I think you're the
That is,
that I
those,
know of.
but I'm envious because you got to go to Korea and got cool pictures and got to Rock March and there. How was the weather there?
It was cold, but I'm from Michigan, so
Oh yes, you're used to it.
Okay, so I have the tomahawk is what people. This is what you got when you left, and these are just party pictures, office pictures, and then this is the payoff of the tomahawk. Once you leave, everyone looked forward to getting that, and at the time we could carry that on the plane. I don't know what the rules are now, but
You probably can't by now, but I mean, they gave me a DD-214. They gave me a Tomahawk, but that is amazing. For in terms of just for your identity when you come back home or when you're outside the service, and do you have a strong attachment to your community back in Michigan or with your family? How do they feel about your time, your service, and what it's done for you? Has it enriched any? Um, I didn't ask you if you had started a family or anything like that.
yes. Um, so when I was in the service, I had um, I was married. I got married in the service. Had a We had a child. Most military marriages don't last, so yes, I got divorced.
Mhm.
Um, but I got out of the service. I was going to stay in for 20 years. I got out because of my daughter. I
What's her
wanted
name?
Tiffany.
Tiffany. It's
Tiffany.
gorgeous.
So thank you. So as a single parent, I could have been shipped overseas, and I didn't want to be separated from my daughter. I didn't want to miss out on those years. And I had friends who had kids, babies, or just any age, and they could have been shipped overseas without their child, and they'd have to sign their child over. And so I saw that enough. I had been in for 8 years. I knew it was probably time for me to go back overseas because it's in cycles.
Hmm.
And so I opted to get out as a single mom, which I never regretted. I didn't want to be one of those parents separated from their child for 1 to 3 years, missing out on years you could never get back.
Yeah.
So as much as I loved the service, I want to, like I said, stay in and for 20 years because it was great. But my priorities changed as a mom. So I currently have a family. This is my family now, and my son, husband, and this is the same
Oh, Tiffany.
young
Tiffany's
lady
on
I
the
got
phone.
out for,
Okay.
uh, all grown up.
Ah, I see. I see. That's
So
beautiful.
they
And so,
make it
what are
always
the names what are the names of your family members in those ones?
Cliff, Cliff, Sean, and Tiff, and then me. Um, yeah. So I've been in school. I just recently finished my MBA. So it took me 4 years to get it because I'm working full time. So I don't do a lot. I mean, on holidays, I take time out to be with my family. My dad lives in this area,
Hmm.
and I have a couple of siblings that live in the Florida area, and they're within an hour away. So I am closely. I'm there for all the important things, the graduations and weddings and so forth. I'm there for the big events. And now that I'm done with school, I can be there more often. But family is very important to me, and I got out of the service because of family commitment and just motherly love. I just didn't want
Yeah.
as much as I love the Army, I love my daughter more than
Yeah.
that. So just, but I would recommend the service because you gain experiences that you're not going to get in the civilian world. Just like I said, the camaraderie, the discipline. You were in the service, so you saw some people may have been kicked out from basic because they couldn't acclimate. But all in all, if you stick with it and make the most of it, it's very rewarding.
Yeah, yeah. I remember it was a failure to acclimate,
Yes.
and that happened to, I want to say, 3 soldiers. Even still, I mean, yeah, like you're saying, I mean, if you don't know exactly where you want to go, where you want to be in life, being a young person, the military does offer a sense of structure, a sense
Yes.
of discipline, and I needed it. I knew that, like, I had dreams, I had hopes, I had aspirations, but I didn't know how to organize and structure that aspect of myself yet, and I knew it was a huge problem. But I didn't know exactly what to do. But I knew that if I was going to get it, it had to be with the military. I did ROTC at Colorado University,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed it. But I remember Major McLean. She was we called her Wonder Woman because she was like you. She enjoyed everything that was PT related, ruck march. Even when she was I remember when she was pregnant, all the way to the end. She showed up every day for PT, and we used to always make jokes after the baby was born. It was like, Major, does your child already have a six pack? Like, because she was that intense and that motivated to always be disciplined, show up on time, teach us structure. And I always admired that. When before I left, she, told me, like, I really recommend that you enlist because you have this NCO mentality. Like, you really enjoy it, and you really enjoy, staying on top of these certain aspects of the military values. And I see that, but you trying to juggle school, the military, and job, and 2 jobs or 3 jobs at a time. It's not going to be a benefit. You're going to burn out way too quickly. So when I enlisted, yeah, that was that I knew that's what I was going for because I wanted to organize that structure, and and it did that for me just as it did you, and I think that's amazing. I love those pictures of your family, and you've got this beautiful timeline, and then at the end of what it did for you, and how it can produce this mother, this individual, proud woman who's able to be a leader in the office, a leader at home, and now you've got a whole family who can, who's going to benefit in the legacy of what you've learned, benefit from that structure. What are your kids doing right now? What's going on with them?
My daughter is in school. She lives in Houston, and my son is in a private school, so he's getting a pretty good education. Education is important, obviously. So and my husband, he's in healthcare. So between both of us, our kids are doing well. I mean, they have good examples. My husband has a master's. I just finished my master's. So education it's empowering to be educated. So we instill that, and we live by example.
Yes. Well, it seems like it, and that was amazing. I'm not gonna lie, that's probably you're my best one yet in terms of just seeing this beautiful transition, this beautiful growth from 18 all the way. I'm gonna say umpteen years because I'm not gonna ask you how old you are. That's disrespectful, but just seeing your growth, having children, and then making these critical decisions once you know you can finally make it after 8 years, and that's amazing. So thank you for your service. Thank you for your time. And it's just a little bit about me.
Yes.
I was just I joined in 2008, or excuse me, 2012. 2008 was like the Great Recession. I went through, poverty, and just it was a bad time for me. But I love just as the whole world was going through it, and the military gave me a chance to kind of recoup on a lot of those things, and to give me a chance to really fight back, if you will. So I joined in 2012. I ended up, soldier of the cycle, and honor graduate, and I had me sign a option 40 contract and said I was going to be a ranger, even though I did not want to be. And so I got and so I went through airborne school one go, and then I went through selection one go, and I ended up a ranger for 2.5 years, 2 deployments, and then I got back and I went to Ranger School. I ended up quitting out of Ranger School. I got sick, and it was during a time there was much strife between scroll, tab, the bureaucracies of the good old Army when it comes to tabs and scrolls. There can be sometimes that stuff. But I ended up quitting, and because I quit, that means they have to let you go out of regiment, which is fine. And so I ended up going to Alaska, and that's how I ended up there. But I needed surgery anyways. I was working ever since my last deployment. I was working with a dislocated shoulder for quite some time, and I had that kind of tough it out mentality that they get into you. And so I ended up getting surgery there, and then another surgery when I transferred to Fort Polk, Louisiana. And at first I was terrified to go to the big Army because you hear these horror stories when you're in special operations about the big Army. But once I transferred, I saw some of the most efficient and effective leadership. And, even talking about them, it kind of gives me a rise because, First Sergeant Nick Arambula, and, when I think about it's just about going through each duty station almost like and trying to find that family that you can identify with inside that duty station. It, like you said, it makes it even harder to leave, and your picture reminded me of that. When that was at Bragg, correct?
Yes.
Yes, with the CID, and that was just
Oh no, that was Fort Leonard Wood. That was Fort Leonard Wood.
That was Linworth. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that one resonated with me. I was just like, yeah, that is hard. That was probably the hardest part about leaving the service. So I wanted to give you a little bit more of me too. That way you didn't feel like the only one sharing there. Yeah. But that definitely concludes our interview. Did you have any questions of me, or you can definitely.
Well, there was one other thing I want to say. So in the service, you develop great friendship. Yeah, you develop great friendships. Excuse me. And again, some people you can keep in touch with. Sometimes you just kind of lose touch. With social media now, you can kind of find people. But in Arizona, my last duty station, I met this couple. And that was several decades ago, but we're still in touch right now. This is a fairly recent picture, but we're still in touch. But our friendship formed in the service, and it's lasted several decades. So it's you just build those bonds, and you just can't get them in the civilian world. It's not the same. I mean, you have them, yes, but it's different when you've been training and working with a set of people. It's just a different bond.
Yes, it's the constant close proximity, day in and day out. And a lot of people ask me. I'm a twin myself, and
okay.
And so people ask me like, oh, what's it like, being a twin? I was like, honestly, it's a lot like being in the service because you're spending so much time with each other that you can finish each other's sentences, each other's thoughts, what they're thinking, and that's what makes being in the service so unique. You're so close all the time, together, where it's just that even if you have to spend, like you said, decades apart or without communication, it has nothing to do with any love lost. If anything, the fact that when you see each other the next time or after such a long period of time, there's all the more love there because you've been missing that connection. And that's what I love about it myself too. So
what did you enjoy most about the service?
For me, the discipline. It was most definitely the discipline. I loved being able to challenge myself. I used to give myself a PT test every single weekend. I was a bit extreme. I loved doing PT to my heart's content, and I loved mastering the basics. That's something that regiment was very critical about. Especially when it came to enter a building, clear a room, or securing the breach, mastering that Ranger handbook, really getting it down. And I really loved that aspect. I loved the art of working on weapon systems, in terms of being able to to be on point, on target, and I would I was meticulous. Even if there was the NCO yelling at me in my ear about keep shooting rifle, I would put my weapon down and I would take notes about how far off I missed the shot and things I could do with my breath control. Because for me, it was about that discipline that I was getting from it, and it was just it was nurturing for me because in certain ways, going from even whether you start at 18 or 20, when you're learning about that structure, you're learning how to be your best known coach, your best known NCO, even if you're not one yet. And that's something that's hard for civilians, for some civilians. For some civilians, it's that transitional period in your 20s to 30s, learning how to grasp that being an adult and learning how to navigate certain things and making critical decisions. Now, I'm not going to lie, as a veteran, sometimes I struggle with the social aspects. I do give the younger generation a lot more credit in that aspect. But when it comes to critical decision-making process or just being certain, about what you want and kind of what you want to do, that's something the military gave me structure in order to kind of make those decisions really on the spot there. So.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I want to end with a quote from Maya Angelou. I have great respect for the past. If you don't know where you've come from, you don't know where you're going. I have respect for the past, but I'm a person of the moment. I'm here, and I do my best to be completely centered at the place I'm at. Then I go forward to the next place. That touched me. I constantly strive to be as productive as I can be and to share life lessons. And I consider myself a lifelong learner, but I constantly strive to grow and do more and just be better at who I am and just be my best self. So
that's lovely. No, it's that constant reminder that we're never done. The job's it's never over. That's one that's almost a trap. I feel that the new generation, even myself, that had fallen victim to. Oh, I'm done with this. I'm done with that. I can kind of relax now. There's no need to, keep going with this great ambition to better myself. There's no area of critique, and then you get humbled again and realize, no, it's just another chapter. Keep going, and don't be afraid of that growth. Allow it to continue. So no, that quote's very much needed for myself and for every other veteran who might be struggling right now and realizing that new growth is always painful, but we're all going to get through it. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
So thank you so much, James, and also want to thank Amy, Dr. Larry Brow, Jason Miller, and everything that they do for the veterans. They're ranked #1 in the U.S. or #2.
I know we're in the top 5. I want to say that we were.
Okay, #2 for sure. #2 for sure. It should be #1 though. But I think the veterans. The veterans is one of the departments that I support, and I was really excited when I first learned that because I just have that much. I have a lot of respect for veterans, and I know what they've been through, what we've been through. So I'm just really proud that veterans is one of my departments that I support, provide fiscal and business support to. So that was exciting to me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you. And I'll meet you downstairs. I'm going to stop the recording, but yeah, I'll meet you downstairs and